Lungere Yetiga Ludaima the Kelu at the Jesus Swan in Lava Coco Maya Olo, Durvale Masogamia Olo Ucho Ye Swan Yiboli. That day, Kavama era day, Lori. Coco Maya Ucho Nalashi, Kavani Yaha Yadoma Coco Nania Mocho Nanjalo. The gay Ucho Ye tapping Yarilla Malila Jalo Lila Melo Pizo Malila Jalo Kavayiha Super Jonity of Madep. Yes, of here, Luyelo Pilla with Lucy Lupita Voya, Treboli, Shake out the sea of Dunyago Masoga, Coco, Piki on the Dapo. Kujiza Diari, Shivira Body, Dunyago, Masogami Body. Tarile paid or other. To the Ribna Bavana Diago. Utterly she Nagoga Coco Taint it Sonji body over column killer. Say who left killer. You did it, you do the Pocoli. Now, Honia, you did it, you are say such a you are. Tintore Kunamyogo, Leve Tunia, don't try to yam. The longer Yetiga Jesus Swine, Nava Timejo, Govashiyama Levagar, Pio Bibi, Delay Nagu Yok Sati, Shilimpia.
In previous days, Sayadawgyi spoke about the 5 ruling faculties, the governing powers which can keep one from making mistakes. And if individuals are able to control themselves, then the problems that exist in the world would come to an end. When people aren't able to control themselves, aren't even able to rule or master themselves, and although they're leaders, they do not study how to govern, or they study but don't apply correct methods, then because of these conditions, the world is seething, boiling with problems. And individuals don't get along with each other. So the Buddha spoke about moral shame and moral fear, hiri and ottappa. Out of shame and fear regarding unwholesomeness, one controls oneself. And as a result, one doesn't harm others. Or one has the ability to understand how other people feel. And out of that understanding, one refrains from harming others, and therefore doesn't make mistakes oneself. So if one practices the Dhamma of Satipatthana, then these ruling powers, which were originally present in the individual, become amazingly strong. One has to understand, have the faith that all things which arise in oneself come to an end. And one has to work respectfully to bring about seeing this. One has to work continuously in the practice, and one needs to have 7 suitable things 7 types of suitability to rely on. And out of the 9 causes for sharpening the ruling faculties, these 5 Dhammas, 4 factors have been spoken about. And today Sayadawgyi will begin by explaining the 5th.
Chigan Kujitiari Pizza on Molly. Go no Julum Puri, Messiah or no. Shay Town, Kujina Dia Shi. Go no Muli, go no Huli, Pigan and Shin. That Chigan over she was it. Saudi, Saudi Kama. Only Charlie the one you are. To the Omi Kamudo Yichivara. Mechanical Omi looked hallucination, down the summer, so you know. Canaledi, Saua, Pure Leather. Litania solution, put up your river. Omi Kamu, the Yichivara. The Mimi, poor system, ha. Then I say, Nitai Yema. Now she paid at the 100 day. Seiko, Ninyao, Pilut at the Tiazuri, Nalia Vara. Either the other Yo Lujimu, Yo the Longavito, Nangande to go on some. Yo Sibia 6 home. Yo the Longavito, Mundi, Yesemu. Yes, Samu, Matimu, my mamma body. Common so Mamadida, what it became a Mamadida. The beautiful. Editia to you, ha. I would say to you, a year, me, the little so. That is like Andalusi, out to a Chimiara. The Karaga Lovari Longavido, Tamil Tamia Agutu Piedora. The Karaga Doda in Longavido, Tamil and Tamia Agutu Piedora. The Karaga, my man who, T. Luem, Champio, Tamil and Tamia Valley. It is a Piedora, Gavaloga, you might attain Shani, Ruma Yenumia. Coco, don't touch you, go walk. Tita Chinga Savio, go, you at it. Me watch it. Go no say Charlie, but she the last Ravali. Twitchy go walk go tea. Go walk go tea. Matanshima, Machow Madirushi. Chow and look bit and Nilani, Shafuyare, Mayamni Shafuyara. Matanshima Dirushi and Tanshina Nilani, Bales Ravali. Mama Ganga Shafuya Bare. The gate, Shagun the Magonita, Shafuya Bare. Sapi Tetanavia, do you call it? To Yan Yalu Malu. Sapia Nune died the gate out of Viro. Vidaguna Chima, Pogori, Tan Chikayara. Dhamma Dinidi Yara. Shale Shafuda, the Yechivara. Shakur near a check on the channel, Udam's or a beat have.
So one needs to, first of all, establish sila, morality. And this means that our physical and verbal behavior will be clean. And one also has to have moral shame and moral fear, hiriya and otapa. So this morality is our foundation. It's just the base, though. It's just the foundation. And like a foundation of a building, there's more that needs to be put there. But it is very important, although it is just the foundation, it is very important that this foundation be firm. Because as in a building, if the foundation is not strong and firm and properly laid, then the building will quickly come to ruin. So in one's life, in living a clean and wholesome life, one must understand what are the things which cause one trouble, which make it difficult to live a clean life. And these are wanting, desire, just on an ordinary level, and then extreme selfishness, wanting for oneself in an extreme way. There's ordinary anger, resentment, bearing grudges, and then there's extreme anger, cruelty, hatred. And there's not knowing that these things are wrong, being confused, being ignorant. So these three dhammas are the roots of all akusala consciousness, of all unwholesome mentality. And if one accepts them, then what will happen is that there will be unwholesomeness. Sometimes, if one accepts them, sometimes greed will become extreme, and then one will commit unwholesome acts based on this. Or there will be anger, the anger will become extreme, and based on this one will commit unwholesomeness. There will be akusala. Or our ignorance, confusion, delusion will be extreme, and based on not knowing this, one will commit unwholesome acts. This is evident in the world. No one can deny that this is so. Just take a look at your own life from the time you were young up until older years. How were you when you were young? So if you can calculate, look at your own self-development and calculate, you will know about your own life. So if these unwholesome factors are not uprooted, then one has to find a way. So what is the way to make ourselves, what is the clean way, what is the true way to uproot the kilesas? So one has to search for a teacher who can teach this. And it's not enough just to have theoretical knowledge. One has to have practical knowledge. One also must go to search for someone that has loving kindness and compassion. So in searching, there are qualities that such a correct teacher has. And there are 7 that the Buddha described.
Changama Pyatare Lugon to go people Yangon check on the check. Nabatiga Pia Gongi Pia Gongi Sura Chipoya County Gongi body, Chiganga Dilla, 2 days relation. Yani solution Hanti Lavo. So Taya Dilla, you did some tailor, go no more. Piazza Gaza became it up. Tashi J. Ejanet Muyale and Dalishi solution. The Chigan to the Luloni, and a Pia Koi cover. Let it go, she the Poco ha. The Mamma Chita de Poco, they laser. Chachisia Golo Yokla, Chitami, Biogolo Chitanum, a king golo chitamio. And a chick had a boat, a pia going. Namanica Kuji di Lajam who said he sit had a cow. A deep in your 11 sheet. To the vow will have a midagruna tavido. A chin and patavido Kujida, Shaloga in a patavido body. Two to Mulija Matave body, Tana Shili Kujida. Telipoko Yuarada. Karus, Lisa Tete Koishia. Lisa Tete Koishia Boko, Karu Kora, Lisa Tessia. The Diladamari Pina, Jidikan, Ponsale de Kajaro. Eluboko, you the Shatia Visualization. Mansiga go to the Pogoria, Edipoco, Po Chanda Zene, Mitari, Taro Dava. Pero Karuna Rila Poro Dava, Massia Zemu Mitagruna, Pound Lady Kajaro, Chinu, Buritari, Poir Tari. Elo Mitagruna Burita, Tane Law. Con a pia go, Grugo, she is Lucian. A lolo very go up, Baonia go up here. That day, Yejiva, Ludoka from a Yejiva. Other ye see the Boko ha Sapine, Korea, Ponsa Pido, Druva, Kujidiari Congo. Piota, Hota, Taitundata, the water going cover. Kuaji Sialuda Hovu, Chuichas Rapiaga Luay, Tutu Gogo Makenja, Shivara. Koma Chuicha Lady Shiluchi, Kurvedi, a Pipsi, watching a Pipsi. Piora Surami, Pitopia than Shivara. Era mio solution. Gigi, you later go look at me. Not so pure Malaso Vidovoli, Mamma Nam, tired. Era watching the Kamako you cover it. Go my choice, Shilo to row at top Yalushi. Pureness, so they can't see it. That day, Yijivada. Kabama era at the ratio anywhere. Not a good Kambidansa Katankata Nene Tiazagari Kuale Sabine Yila Vidovoli Sario Letua Tita Agulu Tripsan Bawana Tiari Tripsan this Saliva Tiari Tamuriba Chowne Joe Sessapone Sadi Boli Lotte Nene Tiazagari Kune Lalaba Mahio Veneboli Shimpia Diam Shimpia Jekoi Era Legia Vada no sooner no Satan in years ago, go me purely the Pocorio. Go Joe Chivio, a luego a Tomishaya. Mamma Kanga Lamshaw, make a lubia. Lanwe Malamia, body. Tomishaya, go a look, Pios of the Tomishaya. No Satan in years ago. At the low. Going Conumune, Piezone, Bokuha Kaliana Mita Korave Gondo Maysway, Gondo Asway, Gondo Saya Apsetawe. Eddie a check on the channel, you wait up for the Ejivare. The check on the channel, Piezo, Bene Kabam Havoli, a good look of Tansari, Luni, Sensaziave. Already shout Piboli Maluade Hari Leve, a Picunari, let me to about it. At the Tumia Sialuchi, Koga, Pizon Ato Sabile Tedlo Diame, to Meshibianello. The Atu Tadia Dai, Konosita, Tomalu, Ginazaki, Dana Shiji, Nida Tendayam. Hands on who to get the Bawaja and Nida Tenya. Edelucia, you are the Yechiva.
To be a good person, 7 qualities are needed. The first is piya. Piya means to be lovable. One keeps the 5 precepts. For monks, they keep their sila. So one keeps one's respective morality clean. One's physical and verbal behavior is clean, and this makes one lovable, piya. So one who has this cleanliness becomes lovable, and this lovable quality is called piya. The second quality, one's sila, one has good sila, and one keeps one's mind, one is able to control one's mind, and one has developed knowledge. One is really able to help others in their search for truth, and they do so without expectation for themselves. This type of person is respectable, and this quality is called guru. So such a person is worthy of one's respect. Such a person is respected. When sila and samadhi and panya, morality, concentration, and wisdom are all combined in a person, then such a person can be a true refuge for others. And other people, because of the qualities that this person has, that person receives their students' loving kindness. Their students feel loving kindness for their teacher because of their sila, samadhi, and panya. And the students also, they don't want that person to suffer. And they rejoice in the good qualities, the successes of the teacher. So such a person who receives other people's loving kindness, who receives their compassion, their sympathetic joy. This is called bhavaniya. So one who has studied and practiced as well, and is fulfilled with sila, samadhi, and panya, they are able to speak for the benefit of their students. They're not hesitant to point out, to say what needs to be said to the students so that the students can progress. And the person who can speak in this way is called vata, this quality of being able to tell the students what they need to hear, whether it's pleasant or not. So that is another quality, vata. And another quality is, now some people think that only those who are very high can correct them. Some people think like that. But when other people see us, they may see something wrong, and in all good faith, they may point that out. So one should accept criticism openly. One should not have any pride. When others point out one's faults, one should not respond with pride, but should accept the criticism, listen to it, And this ability to be patient, to bear the criticism of others, is called vasanakama. That means that they can when other people point out their faults, they don't react with pride. They listen. This quality is very much lacking in the world. The sixth quality is gambirancha katankata. This means that one has studied and as well as practiced the Dhamma, the profound Dhamma, and therefore one is able to speak about it. One is able to speak about topics such as Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness, or the Four Noble Truths, or how due to causes effects come about, the cause and effect relationships of mind and matter. And the person is able to speak about this deep, profound Dhamma without expectation of glory, without expectation of fame, or of receiving gifts. The final quality is nojatana tane nyozako. That means that a person does not use one's students for one's own benefit. One doesn't look and see, oh, how can I, if this person does this for me or that for me, they don't use their students in an improper way for their own benefit. So a person who is fulfilled with these 7 qualities is called a kalyana mita, the best of friends, the good teacher. And it is very important to be able to choose a teacher based on these 7 qualities. In the world, there are many people who teach meditation, and there are many who go the wrong way. So if one is going to be a teacher, one needs to, first of all, fulfill oneself by practice. Then one also needs to study, be able to explain to others about the practice, about the Dhamma. One needs to keep one's physical, verbal, and mental behavior clean, as according to the Dhamma. Really clean, not just pretending. So this type of teacher is very important.
Buddha Myaswa Uniya Tattva ko tiya hota Twitter video attend hota tiya de ma hot pa bu. Amyen ne hota da ba. Tu lo Tripura Bhavana tiya de athok pi do Achala anu kirita de ko le era de Aratamane angwide ba ma chan ko shin lai da. That is shin de ma moha khore to mo ma ma pyata hu taniya phyin le amamati alwe ri ti mu bo le era le pa twa ba de. The Buddha Myaswa ha si sa lai lo chi a kong lo ti do da ba. Ba ma so a kong lo ma shin ni do da ba. A thien ma hot taw a myin phit la da ba. Ai lo a myin phit pi ma Uniya Tattva de ko le lam hi da lo myin ba se so pi do bo le myin ne ni ri hot tha da ba. Thi ya de chan pyo da ma hot pa bu. Aku kala de cho Thippa Panya shin de lo theory thama de lo bo le thi ya de lhauk pyo da ma hot bu. Ko dai nyan ne ko ba nyan ne myin pi ma hot tha deတရားတွေအမှန်တည်ကြတယ်ဘုဒ္ဓသောဘကောဘောဓယဓမ္မတေစေတိလောကရဲ့နှစ်ပေါင်း2500ကျော်လောက်ကအိန္ဒိယမှာပွင့်ထုံးပေါ်ပေါက်သွားတဲ့ဘဂဝါမြတ်စွာဘုရားဟာဘုဒ္ဓရှင်အမှန်တရားရှင်ဖြစ်ကြောင်းအမှန်တရားရှင်ရဲ့အမှန်တရားနဲ့ရှင်ရဲ့သူရောက်ကြောင်းအကျင့်ကောင်းအမှန်တရား Matia Livago Corentiro Mukima Mativene Yanho Mahoramo, Tiro Mukima Pora Tatuamia, Mimilo, Ladu, Lelamidimia, Tizi Jenga Emnago, Adiniane, Madilo she Sayadawgyi U Panditabhivamsa. Tivaze, Sayadawgyi U Panditabhivamsa, so we don't want it. As you use any horror. It is sick party. To go Chinjobo, Pisila Labade, Pomiavo, Namachi, Power, Power, and Yosofia. They shin. Yoga, something go to be able to do our own kind of sheen, Pyondo, Sama goes to the time. Ludi Nadiga, Wabido, Yojarabe, Chiyojarabe, they Yichi. Being as a cogita, they came into the chair. Go your no go, say, Tayo, something that go here, a little shiller. Go Mario, like go Canada, na Bekara, Payaloga, dying of Margaret. Go, Pyonger Peter. Samadhi go level Pyonger to Peter, that you only polar about. The rest of Yaha. The Chopoguri, Tromia Poguri, Mativene, Tiari Show Horam, oh, Mina Horare. Tia Champio, Tiare Champamito Puraho. Niamano, Coventi Yamapao, Tiare Puraga. The Burmese and the Gunega level Shishile Mediro. To Gunega, you want and they came. To your hope you just Jare Pogo, level Homa Hopa Malali, Suravoli. You marry Pichare Tia Champio, Yamano, the Burmese. You Mawen Little Buddha, you Mahopa who? Mia Pampio, Yamino, the water sin, you must sin. Kuri Atolo, Kuri Boli, Mandiari. To the pin, and ye Jerry Kiwi Sigera. Mine Hari Pura, Kubayana Mina, a maneve, Kubayana Mine Hari a maneve. Mia Mampio, Yamino, a dinya bare. Pali is also looking on Yana Tambio Coraval. The water saying, Preaching Jetty, let they shin. Did you get shin the law? In a point, my level, yes, of your Saint Italia, let they go shin. You know, Piaco and Level at the Yavi is right. You have a Yogi, a pew of Shetora. Be a level, Yogi, Shijara Vedama. Eraga, Niama, Lani Vavadia, Erapio, Josaya, a good repeater on a Tiaga. Erago, Pipare. Good yogi level, I took the Hardy, I took the video. Below I took the body 2 years to the body, and I repeat Piara. Tia Repiora, who I don't know, Mina Repiora, Buddha Nila, Buddha Nila, Minakaunedama.
The Buddha taught 4 beings so that they would not suffer. And he taught not out of his imagination, but out of what he knew. So, with the practice of satipatthana, he eliminated the gross, the medium, and the refined levels of defilements, kilesas, with the realization of the path of arahantship. Among the kilesas, moha not knowing or knowing in the wrong way. This was included in what was eliminated. So because of this, whatever he put his mind on, he was able to know. There was no obstacle to his knowledge, to his ability to know. And only after this knowledge arose did he preach how to become clean. Did he preach the practice? Only after this knowledge arose did he preach what he came to know with this knowledge. He didn't speak out of his imagination. Some people, scientists, theoreticians, Sayadawgyi said that the Buddha didn't speak in the way of a theoretician. He wasn't like that. He preached what he actually knew to be true. So it is said in the Pali, Buddha so bhagava buddhaya dhammang deseti. Buddha means that this is the person who 2,500 years ago became enlightened. He came to know the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, the truth of its cause, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path to it. He came to know this, so he was called Buddha. And only after knowing like this for himself did he teach so that others too could know. Buddhaya, this was his objective. If the beings don't know this method, if they don't know the Dhamma, then they will suffer. So may they know. He didn't teach because he wanted others to revere him or worship him. He didn't teach because he wanted material gifts. His objective was very clean. With regard to uprightness, there is no one who could compare to him. And therefore, humans and celestial beings all surrounded him and paid respects. So if one is free of any crookedness, then one is bound to always have enough to eat. One is always going to be trusted by people. So one who is upright is able to admit one's faults, is able to admit what one has done wrong, and is able to correct oneself. So what the Buddha said was connected with knowledge. So when we say what we think, but don't really know, then true nature's unclear and doubts appear. When people say what is just based on imagination, but not based on reality, not based on what is directly observable, what they say is not true nature. And when people hear this, because it's not based on truth, doubts arise in the mind of the listener. The hearers doubt when what they hear is not based on truth. But on the other hand, when one says what one sees and really knows, then true nature is clear and doubts are cleared. So one has to see what one has to say what one really sees and knows. Knowledge must be involved. And then what one says will be very clear. So the Buddha himself, the way he taught was very clear. He himself gained the Dhamma, and he was completely, he had full faith. This is how, and he pointed out this path of this practice of satipatthana, he instructed how to follow it. And yogis, when they report, yogis, when they practice, they put the instructions into practice. When they say what they experience, what they really come to see, they can speak very clearly. They can say very clearly what they have observed because it is truly done, truly known through the practice. And this is the Buddha's way.
Jiro Guru Kubayane Mandiari Kurega Changju Sisabito Pili the Yunan Diario through Kitumshi Seli Mavali Lepida Shumanira Si Asabito Chindaga Shumanira Atonira Tiboma Tidigaledi Kakabito Tidwaya. So me pit all alone. That is so maybe so she say her Burma Mapiro. The tea kaya, so me my sight journey. It at the Marie Cora. The Matalu le Cora, the Matazura, Niwaranari, Yeteo Pilupira. They are now say Pilate a sorry, Yeteo Pilupira. Sati should film below the Diario. She on the Pillow Pira, the Giant Jamomias Validoma. It is the Matalo they call Validoma. It is the Akoyam. Yogi, Toya Tenley or Yabo, Limoloma. Good as I with a Tisha for the iron, Tishagama. Put it outside Italy. They only will change your Zutarelli. I don't know. They only change your Zutavi solution, the dear Mluto. I don't want to go. Can't eat about the Digaloshi, the Maria Lepsela about it. I did the Mariti call on Luku Shumaya, so that Nalia about it. I did the Maria Leve. Yangon Asoro, don't you quit about it. The Kaniga Samadhi, Ne Upasara Samadhi, don't Apana Samadhi, don't you quit about it. Eddie don't you go to Kubit who Shimpia Vame.
Like this, when one observes the mind and matter that are related as cause and effect, when one applies effort and aiming, then one does this so that sati will stick firmly to the object. And when sati is able to stick firmly, then the mind will not scatter. The mind will not scatter. And so, therefore, the mind will become collected. And this collectedness is called samadhi, or samatha. Samatha means to calm the nivaranas, the obstacles to kusala, the obstacles to wholesomeness and to concentration, the dhammas which prevent our mind from being clean and which weaken knowledge. Samadhi, or samatha, cleans the mind of these qualities. So this must be strong, the samadhi. So the yogis, in whatever posture they may be, whether sitting, standing, walking, lying down, they observe the arising object, applying ardent effort and accurate aim. And if one does like that, when the aim is accurate, aiming, then sati will not miss. Sati will stick with the object. and therefore samadhi will arise, collectedness of mind. So we observe so that our samadhi will be good. There are three kinds of samadhi explained in the texts. The first is khanika samadhi. The second is upachara samadhi. And the third is appana samadhi. And Sayadawgyi will explain these one by one.
Edi tomyo rega khanika samadhi sura agu kore sai thabido Tinsha pore amuyari Yona amuyari what? Yona the bodiari Amuyane biology Quira sana sauna gera chora lana chara Pauna pena walidari The body biology no Ona Maidari Tuirari, Mapiatarari Lobato Gonao Puranuira, Era, Tonari, Tenari, Lotari Janzirari, Segurari Sadi, Volida, Muribo. The body on it sat at don't know anybody. Two pity time. A piat like bit of my hour. Hello, Matauda. Kurega, Yona Diari, a day, Pogama. The Canada leave my body. See, I say, Chindaga video, Malu. The canale segly sushi me, Dora. Here I go. Palilu, Kanika, Samadhi, Luconi, Kovare. I go yogi, Eddie Kanika, Mari Suri. Read Mari Agona Lucy, Paramazo, Chanza, Yona Tilame, Yona Jojo Tilame. Eddie a pine logaro, Ubatana, she, Pieboli, Ubasada Tamari, Dem Hatema. Tomo Yona Matigan, Sati Susi Media, Ubasada Tamari, de Tema. Logis and Yalu de Pogoria leve, Ayurkurema Sabido. Sati Susi near that she by Marodilu was at the Marie Pibiro now. Ayurkurema side with Johnny. Santiari, Santa Maria di Piela. Tiratama, Agulu Teatro de Pocurima, Kanika Samari, Ubasada, Sheep Tamari, Pero Apana Samari, Logi San, or Yes Maria. Told you quite however. Kanika. Who was Apana, Tomsha Tamari, Quavia, the Eloqueta, or a Janganyama.
Among these three, when we put our mind onto the arising mind and matter, the rising action, for example, if we speak in terms of the actions on which we focus, putting our mind on bending, stretching, lifting, moving, placing, rising, falling, and so on. Or in terms of dhammas, or net qualities, if we put our mind on things like forgetting, unclarity, heat, cold, thinking, planning, and so on. These are all qualities or dhammas. And one has to observe these as they are. So the Kanika Samadhi is focusing on these actions or these qualities one by one. So when one applies effort, ardent effort and aiming, to observe the arising mind and matter at the very moment it occurs. Then sati follows, and the mind becomes collected. And this collectedness of mind is called khanika samadhi, or momentary concentration. So the yogis now are gathering, collecting this khanika samadhi, momentary concentration. And when one collects enough so that one is able to discern, see the difference between mind and matter, or nama and rupa, then this is at the level of basic upachara samadhi. So people who observe, people who develop the worldly jhanas, they also put their minds, they use their minds to focus. They put their minds on themselves and focus. And after developing this upachara samadhi, then jhana, the samadhi concentration of absorption arises. But here, the yogis who are practicing develop khanika samadhi. So, so there are these three, khanika samadhi, and then upachara samadhi, which is the precursor, what comes before the absorption samadhi and appana samadhi. So there are these three kinds of samadhi.
Appana samadhi, santamari, loki santamari, people ato nijara mobu. Khanika samadhi, people ato nijara ba. The khanika samadhi, the K she, Yamotwe, Yunan diari boma, Porum pose Yunan diari boma, the Kanataka, Sesek Java. O Santa Maria Pina Ayumbo Mavani, Sesek Java. Tiaga Yunan diari Porum pose Mavoli, Shuara. The K she Yunan diari, Huaga. Pinya ayun hurema saijani. Era quite hard.
So people who are meditating now are not working to develop jhanak samadhi, appana samadhi, but are working to develop khanika samadhi. So this khanika samadhi is what is able to fall on the arising object in our mind and body moment after moment, no matter what the object is. The samadhi of jhana is focused on a conceptual object. It is not focused on ultimate reality. It is not focused on something real. Here, we have to watch what arises in us moment by moment. And what is needed for that is khanika samadhi. So this is how these two types of concentration are different.
Buddha Myaswaga Edu Tamarigo Tu Wohara Tontararo Khanika Siti Kakata Sontavara Khanika Sita Egekara Khanika Korega Takana Chautai Salu Popolare Yugna Tavotiari that Khanika look over Milai Jalai, Nalai, Salai, Tilai, Tilai, Kuile, Sunlight, Sounding Gale, Jogger, Lange, Chagas, Educatona. Yuna did the Pipsida. Technally, Puda, Technally, Pugwedora. Era Palilu, Kandika look over. At the young lady, Pore Porum, Pose, Mabalu, say outside chain that gave it of Malu. Eddie Polare, I will lead him. Saitya Dwara. Kanika, a sickly sight chat or a body. At the Mari Kora. Kanika, Senika City Kakata, so Tavada. Erago, Janga Miaga, Kanamata Titi ko Samadhi to Sotavada. I owe daily Pogai, my body, Gulu, Siasa, Chindaga, swimmers or Shulu. The Kanata canali says each other. A miato nesolution. Kanika Samadhi, Dilueton like Pare.
The Buddha called this type of samadhi Kanika Chetekagata. Kanika Chitta Ekagata. Kanika means the mind and matter which arise moment by moment due to causes. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, lifting, moving, placing, and so on. All these arise and then pass away immediately. And that is why they are called kanika, or momentary. So while they arise moment by moment, the mind falls collectedly on that momentary thing. And this falling collectedly of the mind is samadhi. So it is called kanika chetekagata, the mind being one-pointed moment by moment. So this samadhi or concentration is established moment by moment on the object, and it is called kanika samadhi.
One by 6 pounded ladder, pincha dore. A pure of pumping, the board of towner, dinner, looked at you. That is later, the gay sheet, the body. Through Porum was a my body, a gulu. The Kanata ugly sickly says a chadwara. Porum was a lima, the canali say chadwara. Pemu Porum was a lima, sickly say chadwara. Quemu Porum was a lima, canali say chadwara. Landolici, natural cigavido, Chamu was sickly, the canal say chadwara. Lamu was sickly say chadwara. Chamu was sickly say chadwara. A low lana of who. Did yogi of hotel or a twitter. Calling on like who sheet lunchy like, calling on like sheet lunchy like soda. The yogi are utterly at an energy chado. Toro Mayu yogi, the low pounds on you, Atolu, the long Atolu, the Ayama Hoko. Children learned so much sick of you, curing learning chatting, my woman. Say, Johnny, Kaniga, the money are gone. More Gila, who Gila, Bay Gila to the bear, the Pietro, Shin Pietro. The money Kaiju door, they call it. Edel Maloya, who? At the Kiriga the Maria, I own the Quavia Melo. Sapo, I even was say up water, to do well. Now, Paula, Pina, Quaviade, Puranida, Ada, Daddy Quaviade, Donatina, Lodadi, Daddy Quaviade, I order Mumu, Davina the gay sheet. The gay sheet I only go to look Putum selling her body. Say outside Chindaga video, swimmers or shoe, the Kanaka says each other. Since our boy, the Kaitama. Everyone was such a Kaitama. Now she pity commissioner and the ordinary people. Conrad meaning giant and sergeant tea and a dream shoe. Majimina keep you a sick body, daughter in them shoe, that religion. No chatty like any other. Tipo my side journey who rego piano namashi, Puba Namshi. Secretly, no Chinese have shit. Time may be the lemshu. Teke Yonji never uttered sort of say her to Lord to him. Tiago, no shape, purity, you wouldn't not diary, Eddie Kaitan, the king or of it. Not to say I am polite, my like everyone say Jalezero. But I said, and you wouldn't not diary to a way or of it. Yaduna wait or the Luboli. To my Lula door of it. Tashin door of it. Either a lower of her. And a clicker to my sewer of her. That it take Yechi or the tomorrow. And a yogi, you did see such a lulu to Karakama. I read the Maria, the Kunet who sets up your city shame below the Nilu Talu Congo or Lady Shida Bada. Tilo Nina Boli, Shumalo. Era lady who said Hemaro, Matan didn't hire her. Now the J. Mama Kamuthulushi, Eddie. Say Susimu, Conga and Nilan lady who Piamino 3 year video, Eddie Nigu Piancoya Bare. Era Noni Jama, Saduna Letri, Ponsa video Piovama. Tinero Tanaipi or Holotimavia Chauzo.
So we put our mind on the abdomen, and the abdomen rises. We put our mind on the abdomen, the falling arises. So the names for what happens there are rising and falling. But this is just, in terms of true nature, it is things like stiffness or tension or relaxation or movement, tightness. So this is the air element occurring. The air element is something which is really there. And when this arises one after another, the mind falls collectedly on this. So the mind, when the rising occurs, the mind falls collectedly on the rising. When the falling occurs, the mind falls collectedly on the falling. When there's bending, the mind falls collectedly on the bending. When there's lifting, the mind falls collectively on the lifting. When there's placing, the mind falls collectively on the placing. Today, Sayadawgyi saw a yogi who was walking, and as the yogi walked, he or she lifted the head up and then looked to the left and looked to the right. And such a yogi is not practicing respectfully. Such a yogi is not going to gain the Dhamma by practicing in this way. So when one makes a step with the foot, one has to put the mind on that foot. And if one, instead, while one walks, one lifts up one's head, one looks to the left, one looks here, one looks there. Yogis should not do like this. This is not a correct practice. This is not respectful. So Kanika Samadhi is collectedness of mind that is the same moment after moment, although the objects differ. For the rising and the falling are different, but the samadhi that falls, the mind falling on those objects, is the same. Lifting, moving, and placing, these are different. But these are all real things. And because one applies effort and aiming, one is able to observe them. Sati arises and the mind falls collectedly on the object. So at that moment, the obstacle of sense desire, kama, chanda, nivarana, does not arise. There's no wanting to see, hear good things, see good things, hear good things, smell, taste, touch good things. And the obstacle of dissatisfaction, dosa, this does not arise. Instead, the mind is falling collectedly on the object. So there's no scattered mind, there's no worry that can arise. And the mind is focused accurately on the object, so there's no sloth and torpor, no laziness enters the mind. And also because the aim is accurate, then one is connecting accurately with the object, then there's no doubt about what one is observing there. There's no wavering. So all the obstacles to concentration, the nivaranas, are being eliminated. And in the next moment of observation, they're eliminated again and again. So as one establishes this collected mind time and again on the object, whatever the arising object is, the nivaranas, the obstacles to concentration, become very far distanced from one's mind. So the mind is quite clean. One has to collect kanika samadhi in this way. This is very important. And if yogis work respectfully, sorry, I can't read what I wrote here, so please wait a minute. If yogis work respectfully, then the mind becomes clean and the yogis feel quite good and happy. So at those times, one has to remember how one got to that situation, so that when one encounters difficulties at another time, one can apply the method that one knows for concentrating one's mind. So tomorrow, Sayadawgyi will speak about this in terms of the theory and the practice. Today, 1 hour is up, so that's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.